You guys can probably tell I did not paint this. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Krazy4Komps RC. I'm Tim. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, go and hit the subscribe button. Got quite a few videos in the queue. Working through getting them edited, getting them pushed out to y'all. Kind of always something in the hopper, or multiple things for me. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. So we're on episode 3 of season 2, Krazy4Komps. Just kind of what I like to call, you know, more very competition focused builds, typically flat rail chassis. So for episode 1 of season 2, we did a little recap, kind of the first season, you know, my introduction into competitions. I built a truck, went to my first competition, had a ton of fun, learned a lot. And I decided basically that the next time I commit time, you know, take time off work, make travel plans, all those things, it really is just worth it to compete in all 3 classes. You're already going to be there. You're probably going to be there for a couple of days at least, depending how far away you go. So for me, I was like, next time I compete at a Sorka level event, I'm going to compete in all 3 classes because honestly, it was super fun. A little bit nerve-wracking at the beginning, but by the time I was on the 3rd and 4th course, I was having a blast. Then in episode 2, I introduced you guys my class 2, kind of the meat and potatoes, definitely the most competitive class, I would say. Class 1 is definitely really close as well. Class 2 more closely represents the type of vehicles I already have, I really like to drive. So yeah, we went ahead and we introduced my new class 2 chassis. So this is a Jekyll and Hyde. This is from Carbon Works. They announced these that they're going to be redoing them. It's got a forward bias angled skid on it. It's class 2 or class 3. A lot of people are running them. Definitely not class 1 legal with that angled skid on it the way it is. It's got separate rear shock towers, integrated front. It's kind of a 3-piece rail. So your front piece, your center section, and your rear. But I went ahead and got it as a kit. And what you get with the kit is you get your 2 side rails, which is really 6 different pieces. You get a cross brace. You get the servo mount. It's a dual servo mount. You get some body mounts. These are fish crawler parts. You get a skid. I opted to get the links. They're titanium bent links. And these links are kind of odd. They're very close to like high-low links, extremely long. So there's a fair chance you're not going to have links that are going to fit this type of build unless you've been in this game for a little bit. You also get deluxe fab cut-to-length drive shafts. Again, that rear drive shaft is very long. The front one, pretty short. You get a transmission, like a forward motor mount transmission style, and then the top shaft feeds into the transfer case. That transfer case ends up giving you about 21% underdrive to the rear, so puts you in a pretty good spot, pretty good predictability with overdrive or underdrive, however you want to think about it, but nothing crazy. You're going to get pretty good climbing out of it, pretty good turning radius. That's a really sweet spot for overdrive. A lot of people prefer to be in that under 30, kind of that 20 to 30 mark. You do also get a panhard mount. One option I did opt for was the aluminum panhard. Otherwise, it's a 3D printed with kind of a brass insert into it. Probably would have been okay, but I felt a lot better going to this type of panhard mount. So in that last video, it kind of closed out with some time lapse of me starting to put the truck together, the chassis itself. Unfortunately, I got really into the build. It was actually really fun, fairly involved. I wouldn't say this is, you know, for your very first RC kit, if you want to call it that, not recommended. It could be done. A lot of research. Facebook groups are really valuable. Austin at Carbon Works is very active in that Facebook group and probably would be willing to walk people through it or help out. But yeah, I got really into it and camera stopped recording. I think the battery died, and we pretty much got the chassis built, axles mounted, links, everything. And next thing I know, I was like, well, let me get it to a pretty good state and then I'll give you guys an update. So let's talk with where we're at, what we're waiting on. You can also barely see right here, a little sneak peek of my Class 3. So we'll walk through that as well. But we'll get to that. Let's jump into Class 2. So the build was really, really good. I used some videos on Corrupt's YouTube channel. They're linked right there on their website. For putting together the transmission and transfer case, pretty straightforward. There's some shimming involved, and it did take a little bit to get the shimming right. The suggested shims, I think, were off just a little bit for the gears that, it's a machining process, so they're all, a little bit different, but it wasn't too bad. Everything went together really, really well. These Deluxe Fab cut to length drive shafts, first time using those, pretty easy. Got them marked up, measured a couple of times before I cut them. I actually cut them a little long just to get them in there and see if they were gonna fit, and then made my final cut. This is sitting on F10 portals out of a Vanquish Phoenix kit. It does have the low profile brass weights up front. You can see it's sitting on some Method 101s that I had. I kind of want to go a little bit more basic with the wheels, not get too flashy. So I just did decide to go with a Mamba Micro X2. I actually had one of the newer ones. Instead of cutting my old plugs off and also soldering a BEC onto this one has an internal BEC. Not really strong enough to do a whole lot, but it's definitely good enough for a radio. So we're gonna use that. That kind of avoids us having to use a separate BEC. One way we're getting away with that is we're gonna run direct power for the winch and for the steering servo. The winch is in here. The steering servo is something I am waiting on. And that's the reason the wiring is kind of a mess. I want to wait, get that in there, and kind of finish out the wiring. So for the winch, we were running NSDRC, their Pro 500. First time ever using it. Direct power winch, almost 500 ounce inches, 4S capable, going to be really, really strong. For my motor, in my last episode, I did talk about running the 10 shooter Stubby 2700 in-runner, censored, brushless. I really, really like that motor. Problem was, because everything's so tight and this has that forward bias, forward skid, really did not leave enough room in there. We were getting some major interference on this front lower link. So I went ahead and ordered up a Three Brothers RC black jacket. This is a censored outrunner. So a lot of the benefits of an outrunner, really small. It's about the size of a Holmes Hobbies Stubby revolver, but it is a censored motor and it does pairs really nicely with this Mamba Micro X2. There's a couple of configurations if you're interested. They got them on the website. You do have to run it in censored only. It's also not silent. You get that typical. This is actually my first outrunner, and I can see why people think they're quite annoying. It makes quite a bit of noise. It's a very unique noise, but the low speed control is really good. So I'm actually really, really happy with it. For steering servo, I'm also going to NSDRC. I actually had an RS 800 V2 ready to go. I have it here, still in the box, and I was gonna put this in there, but I decided to go ahead and kind of theme out the build a little bit. And they just announced they're doing special editions in blue. So you get a blue accented steering servo with that, and you also get blue accents on the RS 700. It's a little bit lower profile. It's still over 1,000 ounce inches on 4S. Loads and loads of power. Gonna have link issues, rod end issues, probably before you're gonna have any sort of servo issue as far as strength goes. So just wait on that. Should be getting that very shortly. You guys can probably see these blue short Dravtech. So these are 96 millimeter Dravtech shock. I buy them pre-built. I don't really love building shocks, so paying a little bit extra money, having them build them, making sure they're built right, and they are just buttery smooth. There's no fluid in them right now, but they do feel really, really good. The only thing I might do with that is I might throw the offset shock caps on them just to bring them down a little bit. It offsets the total length by about 6 millimeters, so it gets them right down to that 90 millimeter mark. But you still get all the benefits of the travel of the length shock that you have here. You saw in the first episode, I was talking about what I was taking off of my old comm truck. Couple things that live on this that were takeoffs. Number one, the foams and the tires. I learned, you don't really want to run new tires at a comp. The more broken in they are, the better they are. So these are the Hyraxes. They've been ran a few times. They're still very, very new, but they do kind of have that mold release knocked off of them. They've been ran on some rock. Looking forward to taking out practicing with it and kind of getting them scrubbed in a little bit better so they perform as good as possible. And inside here we have Crawl Innovations, dual stage, little Novas. We've got soft up front, medium in the rear. So lots of support when you're going up a steep climb. And the last thing, haven't mounted up the rear yet, but we do have this titanium Corrupt Carbon Works front bumper on here. And it was a little wide, so I did just put some spacers in there just to get it mounted up properly. And I can slide it forward or back depending on body mounting. So I teased in the beginning, but this is the body that I'm going to be running, and I have to give a huge shout out to a couple of people involved with making this happen. First, we'll start with what it is. I really like the style. This is a Proline Coyote body, depending on where you're from, what kind of background you grew up with. Its shape is very similar to a cliffhanger, but it is a little bit narrower. It's a little more squared off in the front, but it does have that pinch, dovetail, very minimal fenders, kind of a little minimalistic drop bed. Doesn't count for any drop bed points, but I do intend to point this truck out. Know the challenges that come with Lexan body in doing that, but looking forward to trying to make it happen. So I was contacted via live stream by Curtis Knudsen. Hopefully I'm saying his last name right. I'm gonna link his Instagram down below if he does take like commission work for painting. So if you like what you see, definitely go check out his Instagram. Shoot him a message if you're interested in getting a body painted. Does great work, communicated with me the whole process, was bouncing ideas off of me. I let him run wild. I was like, honestly, it doesn't really matter what you do. Seeing your work, it's gonna look great. But Curtis donated his time, paint, and this body to the channel, and I just cannot say thank you enough. Super happy with the way it turned out. Did kind of an old school, like rusty weathered look on this Lexan body. Gave a lot of really good depth to it. Just kind of want to show it off a little bit here. Big old rust spot on the roof there. A lot of paint streaking. He cut the windows out for me. Did some dirtying of the windshield, and the body just looks fantastic. Once I get it mounted up, we'll definitely get some glamour shots of it, get it out on the rocks, get some practice in with it. It is painted at multiple different levels, so he said, as I scratch it up, it's only gonna look better. So hopefully I don't feel too bad about doing that. But along with Curtis, another guy on Instagram, DBI Printing, I don't know his first name, but he actually designed up a 3D printed cage, dashboard, and rear and front seats for this. It's kind of got that full roll cage look, as well as a 3D printed dashboard steering wheel. So we're gonna finish that off. We'll put a floor in there, a firewall as well, just to kind of block a lot of the electronics. So once I get the steering servo mounted up, everything programmed, ready to go, make sure everything works, we'll finish up the wiring, kind of make sure everything's tucked away as low profile as possible, and then we'll work on getting the body mounted. A little bit tougher to mount a body that's already painted, but we'll be able to figure it out, and I think we'll have no problems getting it mounted. One thing I am gonna have to do is I am gonna have to cut the chassis just a little bit, which hurts me. Not a cheap kit, this Jekyll and Hyde by Corrupt Carbon Works, but it is just a hair too long here in the rear, so we're gonna cut it off just to make sure it looks proper. Body's gonna look really good. Wheelbase is set up pretty good on it. Another thing I will need to figure out, and probably will fabricate on my own, is sliders. None of the sliders I have are really going to work with this, being that it's angled and a forward skid. So we'll have to figure out some sliders, and then ultimately, once everything's kind of complete on the inside in here, we'll put a floor in here. and then we'll build a little firewall. We'll probably do like a Lexan floor firewall, real minimalistic, but just so you can't see through the truck, hide the electronics, and we can throw some accessories in there as well. That pretty much wraps up Class 2, where it's at right now. I kind of wish it was ready to go. We got some really beautiful weather coming up, and I want to get this thing out, but it's just not quite ready yet. So people who have been around, you know, scouring the internet, looking at a lot of different builds, probably know what this is. If you're a fan of Harley designs, very inspired by him. This is a Capra. So the concept of this basically is you take a axial Capra, you chop the living crap out of the cage, lots and lots of cutting. It definitely feels dirty to cut up, you know, this molded cage like this, and you make it fit some sort of Class 3 geared chassis. This is a brazen scale high-low. So let's do a run through of what this build is, what went into it, and kind of what I think of it so far. So at the heart, obviously, like I said, brazen scale high-low. I ended up buying the high-low and these two mounting plates that go on either side. These are extra. This is carbon fiber. This is also angled forward skid. But yeah, you just get the two rails when you buy the chassis. That's it. So this is running a Fish's Crawler Parts skid, a deluxe fab portal transmission, very straightforward, no overdrive, no underdrive, no transfer case. That's going out via EXO cut-to-length titanium drive shafts. Kind of wanted to try those out too. They were also running a sale on them, so it worked out. And that's going out to some Capra axles that came off of my four-wheel steer Capra. So this is a four-wheel steer Class 3. Ended up getting the links from Hardcore RC. These are titanium double bent links specifically designed for a high-low chassis. You get to pick your wheelbase. So I'm running a 13-inch wheelbase. So a little bit longer than your standard 12.3. Attached to that transmission, we have a Holmes Hobbies Revolver V3 2200. Good up, it's a 14-pole outrunner. It's good up to 4S. We're also running a Crawlmaster Mini V2. So we have a Castle BC on there. A couple of JSTs. Those JSTs are powering the front and rear servo. These are RS 700 V2s by NSDRC. These are a little over 1,000 ounce inches each. Plenty of steering for both. So really happy with those. They're quiet. They're really strong. NSDRC has been great. Their shipping's been good. Customer service has been good. So no complaints there. This 300IS comp spec winch, which is mounted to this brazen kind of accessory mount, winch mount. Came out of my C2, the blue and orange one from the last season. Did really good for me. It's got good speed, good power. And this Castle BC has got plenty of power to be able to run that and the radio. This is linked up to my FlySky Noble NB4. Running one of their little low profile receivers. Not as good range, but for crawling I don't need it. We just have some placeholders on for shocks right now. I ordered some in the works 90 mil shocks for this. I have no opinion right now of in the works. I will say that their processing and shipping is a little bit slower, but I also understand that for a lot of folks in the RC, business, these smaller companies, it is like a side hustle. They have full-time day jobs. So it does take some time to get some of these things, especially to get these shocks built, get them sent out. So hopefully be getting those shipped out soon and get them switched out. But yeah, this is just placeholder and it's way too stiff right now. So for wheels, tires, the wheels are super shafty. I believe they're called Ospreys. I'll link them down below. All this stuff I'll link down below so you can check it out. They've got a couple different widths. This is the narrowest width, I believe. Inside, I got some squid inserts specifically made for these Hyrax LPs. But it did take some serious chopping of this cage and the body panels in order to make this work. The way this is gonna mount, a couple of screws here all the way at the back, kind of spread the cage. That allows for you to have a flip up style mount. I don't think I'm gonna need the flip up. I think we probably will hard mount the front. And my intention is to design up a 3D printed battery mount for up here sit down low up in the front, run a nice little 4S pack, and be able to flip the hood up in order to swap out batteries. So I shouldn't have to mess with removing the cage or anything like that. I do have to figure out a body mount for the cage up front. For testing, I probably will just zip tie it, something like that. But we will come up with a better solution than that. So we're waiting on some parts, we're waiting on shocks. I'm actually waiting on a programmer, an AM32 style programmer, to tune this Crawlmaster Mini. It runs a little hot right now. I'm running 4S on this setup. Need to design up a battery mount. So there's still quite a bit to do. This is actually in running shape. It's not wired finally, but it does run. I got the rear steer set up, I've got the winch set up, and really hard to beat the smoothness of that Crawlmaster, the quietness of it, running these revolver outrunner style motors. A lot of different options when it comes to these AM32 kind of silent ESCs for the outrunners, so you don't have to stick with Holmes. This is just the only one that I have any experience with, and pretty happy with it. Although not the most fun to solder up, especially when you're trying to put BCs, multiple JSTs, and then do all the other connections on there as well. But get a good soldering iron, take your time, get some solder wick, just in case you make a mistake. You can pull solder off of the connections and start over. I actually had to do that once. Like I said, y'all, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you got in the works right now. What are you working on? What are you planning build-wise? Is it comp truck? Is it a scale truck? Is it a hard body? Love to hear what you guys are working on. It kind of motivates me to keep pushing when things start to stall out a little bit. But I'm gonna get to work designing up a battery tray, getting some prototypes printed out, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks.